Hi, my name is Joanna Chapman, and the evidence-based practice that I'm going to talk about today is transitions. A lot of times, students with autism spectrum disorder, otherwise known as ASD, have a hard time transitioning in the classroom, whether it's the general education classroom, a resource classroom, or a special day class. Because transitions can be very hard for them. They can bring up a lot of anxiety, they can be stressful, and it has been a practice that has been researched, and there are a lot of strategies teachers can use to help lower the anxiety level for their students with autism spectrum disorder when it comes time to transition from one activity to another. I'm going to talk about a few different transition strategies today, and the first one I'm going to talk about is called visual timers. Visual timers are a very good strategy to use with your students with ASD during transitions because they allow your students to see how much time is left for an activity. If there's 15 minutes left for an activity, you can set your visual timer, and your students with ASD can continue to look at the timer as they're working on their activity, and they have a visual representation of how much time is left before they're going to need to clean up and transition to the next activity. Visual timers are very important and can be utilized very well in the classroom. Time is a very abstract concept, and a lot of times students with ASD have a hard time with abstract concepts. For example, if as a teacher you're going to say, just a second, or you have a few minutes left, it might be hard for a student with autism spectrum disorder to know what a few minutes left means, or wait just a second. They might take that very literally, and when you have a visual timer, it can be very helpful for them to prepare themselves. It can be less stressful and less anxiety driven when it comes time to transition to the next activity. This is one example of a visual timer. And these are other examples of visual timers. This is a 3-minute timer, and this is a 5-minute timer. And the student with ASD can continue to look at these timers throughout the activity. Another strategy that has been highly researched that can help students with ASD when it comes time for transitions is a pictorial activity schedule. A pictorial activity schedule can be placed in the center of the room or at a student's desk, whatever is most convenient for the teacher and the student in that particular class. A pictorial activity schedule shows with pictures exactly what activities are going to take place during a transition time or throughout the school day. This pictorial activity schedule demonstrates exactly what a student needs to do when they transition from the classroom and to get ready for lunch. The first pictorial card shows that the student needs to wash their hands. Second, dry their hands with paper towels. Third, get their lunchbox from their cubby. And fourth, stand in line at the door with their peers to wait to exit the classroom. This pictorial activity schedule can be very, very helpful for a student with ASD because they can continue to refer to it daily when it comes time to make the transition from the classroom to get ready to leave for lunch. Another transition strategy is a video activity schedule. This is very similar to the pictorial activity schedule, except for instead of looking at a visual cards with illustrations on them to describe how to transition from the classroom to lunch, the student would go to the center of the room or their desk or the computer station, and the transition at the video clip would be all set up. The student would tap the mouse pad and a video clip would appear showing them the process of washing their hands, drying their hands, grabbing their lunch from their cubby, and lining up at the door with their peers. One downfall to the video activity schedule is that if a student is in a general ed classroom, oftentimes those classrooms are loud and busy with up to 32 or 34 students sometimes, and students can get very distracted. If you're watching a video clip and you're distracted by what's going on to your right, and you come back to the clip, you may have missed one of the steps in the transition. However, a pictorial activity schedule, even if you're distracted by peers on your right-hand side, if you go back, the visions, the pictures aren't moving. They're still images. So a student won't miss any steps. Oftentimes, this schedule can be easier for students, but the video activity schedule can be very beneficial as well. Another transition. Okay. Another transition strategy that teachers can use with students with ASD are transition cards. Transition cards are manipulative. For example, this is an example of transition cards, getting ready for lunch. Students actually manipulate this activity schedule. Number 1, it says wash hands. Once the student has washed their hands, they physically peel off the card and they put it in a box called the finished box. That shows the student step 1 has been completed. This can be a very good visual for students with ASD who need to see less images as they progress through the transition activity. After they dry their hands, they peel off the transition card and they put it in the finish box, and so on. Once all of the cards are gone, it is very clear to the student with autism spectrum disorder that this transition has been completed successfully. Implementing transition strategies is extremely important, and although it can take extra effort on part of the teacher, it is extremely beneficial and can be a very good and supportive help to your students with autism spectrum disorder.